From $900,000 rundown huts to a complete failure of an education system, these are the reasons why you should never move to Honolulu, Hawaii. Natural disasters. Nobody wants to die a horrible death in burning hot lava, but that is exactly what you can find when you head on out to Honolulu. Although there is no active ones at the moment, an eruption of one of the Honolulu volcanoes is possible. And if the burning hot lavas of hell don't stop you, then there might be a hurricane which could. But the real killers, though, are tropical storms. These babies usually flatten entire cities with their insane power. There is anywhere from 2 to 5 tropical storms every hurricane season, causing massive damage and hundreds of deaths. And since Honolulu is technically an island, you're stranded if things get real bad. Inconvenience. Being stranded also means that nearly everything that you want is going to be hard to get, because the city is on an island and many things are hard to come by, like cars. If you think the price of vehicles has gone up in the continental US, just wait until you check out the price tags in Honolulu. Of course, you can just rent one if you don't mind paying the 250% recent increase. Having your car shipped to you is an option too, but with the price being figured by the mile and by the pound, you'd put out a pretty penny. Plus, you'd be waiting for at least a month or two. Waiting is something that you just have to get used to in Honolulu, though. Waiting on an Amazon delivery can seem like a lifetime. Many retail stores like Target and Walmart even have a big list of items they won't even have shipped to the island. Building materials, furniture, and maple syrup are next to impossible to purchase, even by mail. Everything in Honolulu is done at a snail's pace. And while it can be relaxing to spend a day at the beach chilling in slow-mo, waiting 2 months to get into a dentist for your toothache can be quite an inconvenience. Isolation. Unfortunately, your friends are not going to make you feel better about that toothache because living in Honolulu does mean nobody from the mainland ever visits you. It's not just cars and items on your shopping list that you'll find hard to find. You'll be hard to get to. I mean, sure, your family and friends will be dying to come see you because, after all, Honolulu is a slice of heaven. Getting there can be hell, though. A mid-range trip to Honolulu for a family of 4 will run you back $10,000. So how many visitors do you really think you have? The feeling of isolation from being stuck on a volcano in the middle of the Pacific Ocean just really isn't anything new. It even has a name, island fever. It's one of the top complaints made by newbies who have to end up moving to Honolulu. And with 900,000 residents in the city, it might seem odd that anyone could feel isolated and alone, but the locals are much more welcoming of tourists and transplants. In fact, there's an old saying that sums it up. If you aren't a local, you never will be. Crowded. If you ever do start to become a local, you'll start hating all the tourists that visit every year. Honolulu is already overflowing with people who live there, but the tourists, well, it just makes it worse. The island just isn't crowded, it's overcrowded. Want to indulge in one of the city's many fine restaurants? Good luck with that. First off, you'll have to battle the traffic just to get there, and then if you do end up finding parking, be prepared to walk a mile or more. Plus, some restaurants have a waiting list of several months, meaning that you might have to settle for Hawaiian McDonald's. Here's the thing though, since the city is so overcrowded, you usually do have to wait in line to basically get anywhere. In fact, waiting in long lines is so common in Honolulu that it's become culturally accepted. Restaurants, concerts, and events are all judged by the length of their lines. If an establishment doesn't have a line, they're probably out of business. Housing and homelessness. Now, if you don't like crowds, you can always just stay home, but that's hard to do in Honolulu, where even a tiny piece of land with a hut can easily set you back $900,000. Thinking that renting might be cheaper? Well, think again, because even a small one-bedroom apartment will run you $1,500 to $2,000 per month. If you want a luxury condo, expect to shell out at least $3,000 a month, and that's not even including utilities. With limited land and outrageously expensive housing, it's no wonder homelessness is an issue. Over 3,000 locals are actually living on the street, and another 3,000 are homeless in shelters. Expensive. Housing isn't the only thing that's expensive in Honolulu. If you think things are expensive where you live right now, everything costs more in Honolulu. From groceries to gas, utilities, you name it. It's all crazy high. If you're middle class in Honolulu, you basically are dirt poor. It's not unusual to work 2 jobs and still be living paycheck to paycheck. The cost of living in Honolulu is 88% higher than the rest of the US, but the pay is below the national average. Most folks who end up moving to Honolulu are forced to downgrade their standard of living right from the get-go. Taxes. Despite the expensive nature of Honolulu, it gets somehow even worse with the exorbitant taxes, which you will have to pay as a local. Honolulu is known as the Paradise Tax. Sales tax sits at 4% in Hawaii, then Honolulu tax on another 0.5% for a total of 4.5%. Tourists often get annoyed by the tax on top of price tags that are already outrageously expensive. But imagine covering the cost every day and having to accept it as part of life in paradise. Property tax is not only some of the highest in the nation, it's confusing too. Residential tax is taxed at $3.50 per every $1,000 of assetted values, unless it's residential A, Tier 1, which is $4.50 per 1,000. Now that's not to be confused with residential A, Tier 2, which is $10.50 per 1,000. If you didn't understand any of that, then don't worry because I'm still trying to figure it out myself. To make things even worse, Hawaii just announced that they're going to be raising the state's income tax to 16%. The highest income tax was previously held by California with their 13% income sales tax, but I guess now Hawaii now holds the trophy for the most thieving state ever. Bad business. If you're dreaming of starting a startup or popping up a pop-up in Honolulu, it's likely to end up as a nightmare. The city has always been a challenging place to start a business. Dubbed the land of limited opportunity, Hawaii is ranked as one of the least business-friendly states in the nation. Honolulu is the toughest city in the state to successfully run a business, so things are far from promising if you try to strike it rich here. The cost of living, plus the steep property rent and expensive labor, make it near impossible to launch a company that will make you money. Now, with complications from the pandemic factored in, Honolulu has become a ghost town for small businesses, especially new ones. If your business is in a regulated industry like hospitality, then you'll find a whirlwind of excessive rules and regulations await. Education. Education is a big problem in Honolulu. There are more private schools available per child than anywhere in the US, due to the fact that the public school system is a complete failure. The private schools are excellent, but flunk out for affordability with a yearly tuition of $17,000 or more, and that's just for one kid. If you're only making $34,000 a year in an annual income, and you got two kids, then you'll be in for a true test on how to afford food, shelter, and education for your family. The alternative is just to provide a roof over their heads, feed them, and send them to school that constantly gets a big fat F on their own report cards. Culture shock. If you think the public school system's a letdown, then you'll be in for more of a shock when you discover that more negative things about Honolulu's culture. If you're maybe expecting Hawaiians to embrace traditional American values, you might be unpleasantly surprised to end up learning that the annexation of Hawaii into the United States isn't even celebrated in Honolulu, or the entire state for that matter. Quite the opposite, in fact. There are often fights that break out between pro-Americans and pro-Hawaiians. Most Honolulu natives feel their country was overthrown and was forced into joining the nation. Another thing that you need to take into consideration is that if you're Caucasian, you're going to be a minority that the locals will refer to as well, I'm not going to say it. Don't worry, you won't be sacrificed at the stake or anything traumatic like that, but you'll definitely need to get used to living your new Honolulu life at the low end of the totem pole.